Hello and welcome to this week's ATN Weekly News Roundup. I am Aham, bringing you the highlights that shaped the world, Africa and Nigeria into what they are today. Beginning with the headlines. Titanic explosion at Tennessee munitions plant leaves 19 missing. Palestinian groups reject foreign oversight as Gaza ceasefire holds. Lecornu reinstated as French Prime Minister after Macron's reset. US government shutdown persists to meet Trump's growing pressure. Germany abandons fast-track citizenship route for high-skilled immigrants. Burkina Faso detains European aid workers on espionage charges. World Bank warns 139 million Nigerians trapped in poverty. Gambia resolves 2026 presidential election despite third-term outcry. Nigeria's Council of State declares Amupiton as a new INEC chairman. Super Eagles thrash Lesotho to keep 2026 World Cup dream alive. Now let's go into the news in detail, beginning of course with international news. Tragedy struck in the United States following a massive blast destroying an explosives factory in Humphreys County, and at least 19 workers remained unaccounted for. Sheriff Chris Davis, looking shaken, had stated at the time that no reason was given for the explosion, as federal agents from the ATF and the FBI restricted access to the site. Skycam footage revealed very little remained of the plant, but deformed metal, burned wreckage, and blackened ground, with surrounding cars continuing to smother hours on. The explosion, which hit shortly before 8 a.m., was heard miles away, triggering a massive emergency response as ongoing detonations allowed rescuers to initially be denied access to the building. Peace also returned to the Gaza Strip in the Middle East as the Israeli-Palestinian ceasefire held throughout the week. All the groups of Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine all reasserted that the administration of Gaza would remain an internal Palestinian issue, rejecting any attempt by a foreign power to exercise control on an administrative basis. Across Europe, French politics took a fresh dramatic twist when President Emmanuel Macron reappointed Sébastien Lecornu as Prime Minister just 4 days after the latter's resignation triggered a political crisis. Lecornu, who had previously described his mission was over, was recalled after Macron's efforts at creating a government of unity in power fell through. The Elysee Palace said Lecornu was given carte blanche to create a new government before Monday's budget deadline, an all-or-nothing test for Macron's fragile coalition as France is facing rising economic and social tensions. Meanwhile, in Washington, the federal government shutdown continued as partisan gridlock mounted. The White House ordered agencies to furlough thousands of workers, including senior scientists, at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Reports showed that more than 4,000 federal employees were fired on Friday after Congress once more failed to pass stopgap funding. President Donald Trump maintained public pressure on lawmakers to pass a spending bill that mirrors his administration's agenda, but the Senate adjourned for the long weekend without taking action, leaving the shutdown in its third week. We move on now to news from Germany, where they have also made the headlines after the parliament voted to scrap the country's underused fast-track citizenship program, which allowed high-skilled foreigners to be naturalized after 3 years instead of 5 years normally. The measure, introduced in 2024, was sparingly applied but caused controversy while being promoted on the election campaign trail by Chancellor Friedrich Merz. We move now to news coming in from Africa and Nigeria. Beginning in West Africa, where an 8-member crew of the Netherlands-based aid agency was detained on espionage and treason charges by Burkina Faso's military-led ruling government. The crew was accused by the government of gathering and forwarding sensitive security data to foreign nations. The International NGO Safety Organization, or INSO, would not verify the report, saying its narrow mission was to provide security guidance for aid staff working in war zones. Analysts warned the detentions would escalate tensions between foreign donors and the junta. In Nigeria, the World Bank released a dismal report that mentioned 139 million of its people remain poor despite ongoing economic reforms. The country director of the bank, Matthew Verges, said that while macroeconomic stability has been attained with recent stabilization measures, average Nigerians have yet to feel the relief. The October Nigeria Development Update, titled From Policy to People, indicated that poverty levels have worsened since 2023, largely due to inflation, weak purchasing power, and structural inequality. More to the west, the Gambia stated December 5th, 2026 as the date for its next presidential election. President Adama Barrow's bid to run for a third term has raised eyebrows as critics accuse him of reneging on previous commitments to institute term limits. Barrow's allies blocked a 2020 constitutional roadmap that would have capped presidents at 2 terms, clearing the way for his return to office candidacy. Opposition leaders warned the move undermines the country's democratic course. At the same time, in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu formally appointed Professor Joash Ojo Amupitan as the new chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. The appointment was approved by the National Council of State with all deliberate speed, putting an end to speculations for several weeks over Mahmoud Yakubu's replacement as his term expired. Amupitan, a senior advocate from Kogi State and a professor of law, is to be assigned to spearhead preparations for upcoming state and federal elections, a duty described by analysts as crucial to the restoration of public confidence in Nigeria's electioneering process. We move on to news coming in from sports and culture. In football, Nigeria's Super Eagles revived the hope of making it to the World Cup after a hard-fought 2-1 victory over Lesotho. The victory boosted Nigeria's chances of finishing in the top 2 of the group after South Africa played a draw against Zimbabwe. Coach Eric Chell praised the team's composure under pressure, but analysts noted that Nigeria must now defeat Benin Republic in the final qualifiers, while hoping that result elsewhere goes to help them secure a spot at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. That is it on this week's Africa Today News Weekly Roundup. Join us again next weekend for the top stories shaping the world, Africa and Nigeria. I am Favor Aham. Thank you for joining.